becoming a forensic psychologist. First, the most common question that I'm ever asked is, what led me to this? But I, like every other person on the planet, or most people on the planet, I should say, did not know this was what I wanted until way later in life. I knew I wanted to go to college. Actually, I was forced to. It was just a requirement in my family. I'm a millennial. I had boomer parents. They felt like a degree was what you needed in order to have that secure job, get that retirement, and do the boomer thing. But I also wanted to go to college. So I went and I declared my major in psychology because that was the topic that I was most interested in. And I had the first 2 years where I was taking nothing but really prerequisites, and it exposed me to other topics, things of interest that I could explore to see if I wanted to switch majors. But ultimately, I stuck with psychology. I graduated with my bachelor's of science in psychology, and off I went into the world. Only there was very little I could do with that. I got a job at Walgreens corporate. Remember, I'm from Chicago, and corporate is there. It's situated outside of Chicago. I commuted there. Cubicles, the whole works. I knew that I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So I was really thinking about what else I could do. And in 2006, my papa died. My papa was a forensic expert. He was a sergeant for the Chicago Police Department. He became the chief microanalyst of the Chicago Crime Lab. He worked on John Wayne Gacy. He worked on Richard Speck. He was featured in Time magazine. People, when they saw him, would say hi. He was notorious, I guess, so to speak, in Chicago in the realm of scientific and criminal investigations. He taught, he authored books, he co-authored books. Most importantly, he invented the rape kit, along with Martha Goddard. But when he died, the magnitude of what he did really, really hit home. We were inundated with letters, sympathy cards, phone calls from people all across the United States. Survivors of sexual assault, attorneys, politicians, members of law enforcement. A uniformed police officer delivered to me my grandfather's personnel file. He was given a day of celebration by the mayor. I read every single one of those letters with my Nana. I put all of them in a scrapbook for her, which I now have. And going through those and putting them together, I realized that my hero, who was my papa, I was so close to him, that he was everybody's hero. That this devastating loss that I just had wasn't just mine. And the impact that he had on this world was so strong that people 30 years later have not forgotten him and felt compelled to reach out and tell us, the surviving members of his family, how significant he was in their life. That's when I was like, okay, I'm not meant for the cubicle life. I need to do something that has an impact like this. So I started thinking about what that something could be. And I'd always been inspired by him. But one conversation we had when I was old enough to talk about his invention and our co-invention, and we talked about Martha all the time. I always knew about her. But when we finally had this conversation and I asked him, what that was like, and, he told me he didn't like to talk about it because it's not something he wanted praise for, because he didn't feel like something like this needed to exist to begin with. But here we were. But the most important thing that stood out to me was that he didn't understand, no matter what he did to try to improve crime scene investigation, improve DNA processing, improve, ways in which we can identify an offender, that was not a deterrent, that he would see the same people cycle through the system and that they wouldn't learn something from that or be deterred by consequences. That was something I felt like I could address that. I wasn't going to be a cop. There's no way. And I definitely am not good at science or anything with math, and chemistry is all about that. So forensic science was not for me. So I explored forensic psychology. And once I did my due diligence with my research, I narrowed down schools that were teaching it. And at the time, there were very few. It was not a very wide field at the time. But luckily, I was in Chicago, and the Chicago School of Professional Psychology was established and well known and well respected in Chicago, and they had the forensic psychology program. So I applied. Only I wanted to attend their campus in Los Angeles because I wanted to work with the gang units. So I got in and I moved to California. Firstly, if you're seeing this and you're an undergraduate and you're trying to figure out what you want to do and you decided on forensic psychology, or you decided on this field in general, psychology, and you want to do like forensic assessments for the courts, you need a doctorate. Do not do a master's. A master's in forensic psychology will absolutely get you nowhere. I have never met someone with a master's working. So, although that might change, you do not have to get a master's before you go into the doctorate program. You can go straight into the doctorate program, but it will be competitive for you, much more so than someone who has a master's. So here's what I did to be competitive. I volunteered on research studies with LGBTQ communities. I was an intern for a professor at my school, and I was working directly with populations. This also allowed me to network more consistently, which then allowed me much more opportunity for letters of recommendation. If you're already actively volunteering your time in the field or adjacent to the field that you're wanting to go into, that is going to make you competitive. They also want to see your understanding of diversity. So be very clear about that, whether it's your own personal experience or it's the experiences that you volunteered in that allowed you to open yourself up to understand diversity a little bit more. But do proactive things that could look very good on your application. So I had those. I had my letters of recommendation, but to get in from a bachelor's to a doctorate, I needed to get a certain score on the GRE, and I'm terrible at math. I have a tumor in the left temporal lobe of my brain. So working memory is difficult for me and always has been. So when it comes to math, I can't use my working memory to work problems and sort of come up with a solution. I need the calculator. I need those things. I had to start math all over again when I got to my undergraduate school. That's how bad I am. It's a disability for me, essentially. So I took some prep courses and I got the score needed. They also wanted a writing sample. Writing has always been a good strength for me, and if you are not good at writing, I would very much suggest that you get on that somehow and practice and hone those skills, because a lot of your job, 90%, is writing. Writing notes, progress notes, charting on people, writing reports for the courts. You need to have good writing skills and a vast vocabulary. Then you'll have an interview process. They're going to interview you as a candidate and ask you interview questions. And this has been so long ago, but some of the questions that I were asked had to do with diversity. What can I bring to the field? How can I benefit the field? What areas of interest do I have for research? Because you're going to have to do a dissertation. So start thinking about the areas you'd like to learn more about and contribute to as a member of the academic community. You don't have to be perfect. They're mental health professors. They know that perfection is not possible. But having insight, self-awareness, and emotional maturity is enough to get you to where you need to be. So go to therapy, learn your stuff. That will show when you're in your pursuits academically. My first year of school was strictly coursework. So I was able to work, and I worked for a criminal defense law firm, which was very valuable because it allowed me to understand the system from the perspective of the defendant, because we learn about it from the perspective of the prosecution. My second year, I couldn't work because it was coursework and practicum. So you're placed at a site where you can apply what you're learning. That's the same for my third year. Your fourth year is your internship and dissertation. So this is my journey to becoming